Ron Pevny. Welcome to the Fieldswell Podcast.
Thank you, Lauren. It's an honor to be here with you.
So, you are the founder and director of the Center for Conscious Eldering and the author of the book Conscious Living, Conscious Aging, Claiming the Gifts of Elderhood. Tell us a bit more about you and what led you to pursue this path of helping others to age well with purpose, intention, and a focus on legacy.
Well, Lauren, I learned way back when, probably about 30 years ago, when I had completed my graduate training in East-West counseling psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. I learned that my sense of calling, what I have to give to the world, very much revolved around helping people move through life transitions. And I ended up being able to train with some of the real pioneers in bringing wilderness rites of passage into contemporary society, and ended up starting my own organization offering wilderness rites of passage for a bunch of years. And after that, I had to do some other things to make a real living, because wilderness rite of passage guys don't make much of a living. But I always, I was a corporate creativity trainer and an education consultant, things like that. But I always knew that where my heart was helping people move through transition. And these other opportunities that were helping me to make a living came to a natural conclusion around the year 2000. And I began to realize that now I have the opportunity again to really focus on helping people use transition to grow. Mm-hmm. And right about that time, as I was thinking that, there aren't any programs around to help support people moving from that transition from midlife adulthood into elderhood.
Yes.
There's programs for other stages in life, mm-hmm. not for elderhood. And about that time, I was contacted by two wise elders, 15 years more elder and wise than me, and said they've been thinking about the need for a program to help usher people into elderhood. And they invited me to team up with them. And we teamed up and we created some of the first conscious eldering programs in the country.
Wow.
And my partners ended up aging out, unable to keep doing the work. They passed the torch to me. And I founded the Center for Conscious Eldering back around 2006 or 2007. And I'm able to fulfill my calling again, doing what brings me alive and what I believe is much needed in the world today.
Yeah, it really is. And here you are almost 20 years later, still running the Center for Conscious Eldering. I love this term, conscious eldering. How do you define conscious eldering, and how does it differ from other approaches to aging, such as like positive, healthy, or successful aging?
Well, I believe that all of these many approaches to aging that we're hearing about these days are valuable, because they help people as we age to recognize that we can still have vibrant, active lives. And that's good. But what's missing from that is any kind of a focus on the growth of the person who is doing the aging. And a lot of these other ones are kind of predicated on the notion that now that we can live longer, we can be healthier, with mm-hmm. medical advances and all these things, we can continue to live the same way we were living at 50, maybe all the way up until 80, until our bodies finally give out.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't recognize that there is a whole life stage, a stage in the growth of the psyche called elderhood that calls for some different things other than just continuing to be active and to try to act like you're 50.
Yeah.
And so conscious elderhood really is an approach and an understanding and a set of practices mm-hmm. that help people to intentionally mm-hmm. grow into the elderhood that's possible for them in these years after retirement age.
Yeah, I love that word intention, living with intention, because mm-hmm. each new phase of life requires a different version of us and different practices. What are some of the practices you're speaking of that really help people navigate this stage of life successfully?
Well, there are a lot of different practices, but I think I can lump several of them together for your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Life review is critical.
Mm.
And, oftentimes you hear people just kind of superficially talk about, well, they talk about elder wisdom or whatever. But I don't believe that we grow wiser just because we've grown older and we've had a bunch of experiences. We grow wiser because we have taken the time to reflect on our experiences. What have we learned from them? What have they taught us? How have they helped us grow? How can they continue to help us grow? And how can we use that wisdom to help benefit younger people who
Mm-hmm.
haven't lived as long as we have and haven't had these particular learnings?
Yeah.
Life review really involves looking at our lives, looking to see what needs healed.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Yes.
And we all have areas that need to be healed so that we're not carrying around a bunch of wounds that are just dragging down our energy as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to forgive? What needs to be forgiven? What are the things that as we age, it's just natural and right that we let go of? Maybe even things we have loved that have served us well that used to be part of our life, but they're not going to be part of who we're becoming. What are they? And what are the gifts that we've developed over the years that need to be part of us until the day we die because they are so essential to our well-being? And so using various life review processes to look at our lives in this way is maybe about the most important important practice that we can do.
Yeah, I love that concept, a life review, kind of taking inventory on how things have gone and perhaps what we want the next, chapter of our lives to look like and how we can start to give back to the younger generations.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Mhm.
right. And that's something that I think is so often missing. I believe the world we live in, the modern world, does not have any kind of a healthy and empowering vision for people as we age.
So
And
true.
oftentimes, all you read about in the newspapers or hear in the news or whatever, when you're hearing about the aging population, is how they're going to bankrupt society. What we're taking, our Social Security, our Medicare.
Yeah.
But we're not hearing anything about the role that has defined elders throughout history, until maybe a couple hundred years ago, that elders had much to contribute to their
Yes.
community. And so conscious elderhood is very much about recognizing that we've had wonderful lives, we've learned a lot, we've been blessed with a lot of support, and this is our time in life to be spending at least some of our energy and talent thinking about the well-being of the generations to follow us and the well-being of the world around us, the earth environment, the cultural environment, and giving back something rather than just seeing our elder years as an opportunity for play.
Yeah. And I really enjoy and I'm grateful to have this conversation with you because I think so many of us fear aging because of this societal stereotype that we put on, elderhood or getting older, because I think there's a fear of, okay, after that, what's next? Our lives may come to an end. We're fearful of approaching that. But I believe this is to be celebrated, and every stage of life should be enjoyed. So how can we kind of reframe our mindset in regard to anyone who maybe is approaching elderhood or in elderhood and kind of resisting it, or even for the younger generation who are already fearing the concept of aging?
Yeah. We one reason we fear it so much is because our culture glorifies youth.
Yes.
Our culture doesn't hold forth a positive model or positive image for what aging can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, thank goodness there are a lot of good resources out there now. I like to think my book is one of them. There are many other good books. There are workshops. There are all kinds of elder wisdom circles in communities and in faith communities and things like that help to present a positive vision for how aging can be a time of growth of service. And if we want to change our mindset about our aging, looking for some of these resources and spending some time really paying attention to them can begin to help us see that, hey, maybe there's a lot more that's possible
Yes.
We just need to go investigate it.
Mm.
And that's a beginning. And I think another important step for all of us, and this is one of the key principles of conscious eldering, Lauren, it's important to take a look at the beliefs that we carry about aging.
Yeah.
And many of these started to become internalized in us when we were kids, because that's what our culture is like. And if we take a look and we see that, yeah, we believe that aging is primarily a time of diminishment and loss. It's a bummer that I nothing to look forward to. If we're holding that belief and yet we want to age differently, then we need to recognize that that's the belief that's internalized, but we don't have to keep holding it.
Right.
And one beautiful thing we can do to help transform beliefs is to make a conscious effort to look around us to find models of people, older people, who are really, they shine. They're
Yeah.
beacons of light. They're the kind of people we want to be with. There's something about them that we think, wow, what an incredible person they are. And they're an elder.
Mm-hmm.
And to look for those kinds of people, to see that it's possible, to see what the qualities are that they've developed,
Yeah.
and to acknowledge, hey, we can focus on developing some of those qualities ourselves so that we can begin to shine a little more brightly and see our elder years in a more positive light.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I'm a big believer in finding a mentor or a role model who is an example of traits that I want to embody or someone that I would like to be like. So
Yes.
very helpful there. I'm curious what you've seen, piggybacking on this. What is it that there are certain people who really seem to thrive as they age while others struggle? What do you think are some of the biggest contributors to this difference?
This is such a multifaceted answer that we could probably spend the rest of our time together. But I think one of the biggies is that so many people, as they age, first of all, do not have any kind of a positive vision of their aging, as we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But second of all, they are carrying around a lot of accumulated baggage throughout a whole lifetime.
Yes.
A lot of unhealed wounds, unforgiveness, just a lot of stuff that saps that precious energy. And we do have less energy as we age.
Right.
And we can either put that into our aspirations to age really well in a fulfilled way, or that energy can be stuck with all the baggage we're carrying around. And that's the importance of doing some of what I call the inner work of conscious eldering, clearing up some of this baggage so we free up energy. So then as we begin to envision some of the positive things that might be possible for us, we've got energy to put into it. And we've maybe dealt with some of the old habitual ways of being that are not going to serve us. And as we work to change some of those, then we're able to actually accomplish some of what we aspire to.
Yeah. To become consciously aware of baggage, resistance, regrets, memories, stories we're still telling ourselves from the past that are no longer serving us, we can move beyond and kind of free our energy to focus on our vision for the future instead of a memory of the past.
That's right. That's right.
So say we're, approaching elderhood. Maybe our listeners have just retired and they're feeling like they may have lost their sense of like meaning or purpose because they no longer have a job that was occupying most of their time. How do you help someone discover meaning and purpose in this elderhood stage of life?
Well, meaning and purpose. I would preface what I'm going to share by saying that meaning and purpose are absolutely essential to aging well. And there are many, many studies, research being done in this country, research being done in societies around the world that look at what are the factors that contribute to aging well. And what's at the top of almost every list are two things. You have meaning and purpose, and you have community. And it doesn't just mean a whole bunch of people. It means some people that you resonate with, really care for each other, can really share with.
Yeah.
Those two things are absolutely vital.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're not going to find meaning and purpose just by reading a book or going to a retreat or something, even though those can be important catalysts to help you in your journey. But because it takes a while. But I think one, great definition of purpose has been used by several, is that purpose is a reason for getting up in the morning that is bigger than just yourself.
Yes.
I really like that definition. And one practice that is really important to a lot of people and that we teach is that you can try to cultivate a mindset, even when you're really lost, like you were talking about if you just retire. Try to cultivate a mindset that says, I'm only going to thrive if I can live with purpose. So therefore, my purpose this day when I wake up is going to be to somehow grow and to somehow be of service.
Mm.
It doesn't mean all day that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do this each day somehow. And beginning to change that mindset. And then as we're growing, if we stay true to our commitment, and as we try to somehow be of service, and we all have a million ways we could somehow serve somebody in this world. As we do that, we look and see, what brought me alive? What was I doing that made me feel most truly alive? And that gives clues, because purpose is so much tied to a felt sense of true aliveness. And the more we find things that truly bring us alive, the more we begin to get in touch with what our real purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
I make a distinction here between just temporary highs. We can all engage in some pleasurable activities that feel exhilarating.
Yeah.
I think we all know, if we look within, that there's certain times we feel kind of a whole aliveness of our whole being.
Mm.
And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And activities that help us to touch into that are activities that are helping us to touch into what purpose can be for us.
Yeah. I love this focus on growth, service, community, and this consistent, persistent pursuit of our own potential, because just because we turn 50 doesn't mean our life is over. We still have a very great amount of time left.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious because, in the US, we grew up as a very individualistic society, lots of ego driven pursuits. And I think one of the complications with aging is you start to realize, wait, community plays such a big role. So I'm curious if you'd see a shift in people's focus from like ego driven pursuits to really having to learn how to contribute and give back to the greater good once they are with you.
Well, the kind of people who come on our retreats,
Mm-hmm.
who read books like mine, I would imagine the kind of people who come on podcasts like yours generally, are people who have some sense that their ego needs and pursuits aren't everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say the kind of people who come in our retreats already have some sense that there's something else possible.
Right.
And they just want a little bit of support on how to move toward that. But I would say, Lauren, that looking at the larger world around us, conscious aging, spiritual aging, there are various terms, conscious eldering, we really are outliers. Mainstream society still is wrapped up in an old model that is not in any way empowering. But it's changing slowly but surely. And all we can do is do our best, I believe, to shine our own lights in the unconscious darkness of the world around us. And the more of us do that, the more other people are going to maybe see these lights and start to shine theirs.
Yeah, you can only lead by example. You can't force anyone to change. But something just came to mind in regard to society and aging. And it's almost like there are certain people who cry on their birthday because they're a year older. I like to celebrate every year of life, but it's like, how did that come to be a reality that we're resisting aging. I feel like with each year, so long as you are pursuing your purpose and like living a life that's true to you, each year should be celebrated because you learn so much, you connect with more people, and you had another year to like experience this beautiful gift called life.
Yeah, that's totally right. And the reality is that the world we live in, which is very, very much out of touch with, I think, with the whole process of human growth. In that particular reality,
Mhm.
you have youth and adolescence, you start to prepare for a career, you have a career, maybe along the way you go through a bit of a midlife crisis, but that career ends. And what else is there? What else does our society prescribe? Does it our society does does it tell us that here's an opportunity now that you've got more freedom and you can live longer than any generations have ever lived? Does it tell us now you have a chance to really find what brings you alive and to live with purpose and to make a difference in your world? Our
Mhm.
world doesn't tell us that. And
Mhm.
so, of course, we're going to get bummed when we reach retirement age.
Yeah. So, do you consider elderhood 50 and above?
No, no, I don't think so. I think that was probably true in past generations.
Yeah.
But
That's
I think that generally speaking, probably, oh, I guess around 64, 65 for most people is when they began to feel this inner call
mm,
toward elderhood.
yeah.
And our societal marker of that passage tends to be retirement.
Yes, exactly. I was going to ask you, with all the advancements in science and technology and this notion of the fact that like we may be able to live a lot longer than we ever perceived possible before, if you've seen a real shift in that in regard to people's perception of aging or maybe the age that they are when they come to your programs.
Yeah, that is really shifting. And now you get 80-year-olds,
Mhm.
saying that 80 is the new 50 or whatever,
Yeah.
all these kind of things. So, yeah, and it certainly is tempting
Mhm.
when we learn that with what we know about healthy lifestyles and modern medicine, that we can stay vibrant and energetic longer than even one or two generations ago. It's tempting to think that, well, that just tells us that we can continue to keep acting like we're in midlife adulthood.
Fair.
But the fact of the matter is, at some point in there, this whole inner drive toward the life stage of elderhood begins to kick in. Maybe not fully, it's a process, but it
Mm.
begins to kick in.
Yeah.
And the sooner we can begin to start to prepare ourselves,
Mhm.
uh, to start to develop a mindset that there is something beautiful ahead of us, but it's going to take some real inner shifting to be
Yeah.
able to embrace that,
Mhm.
to begin to start to become aware of habitual ways of being and things we hold on to that we
Yeah.
deep inside we know aren't going to serve us as we move forward.
Mhm.
They need to be let go. To start to do some of that inner reflection
Yeah.
starts to open the door through this passage. But elderhood isn't something you cross a line at a certain
Right.
age. It's a whole passage, and I think that some people move through it beautifully and reach a real fullness of elderhood. Some other people just touch it a little bit, but at
Mm.
least that's beautiful.
Mhm.
And a whole lot of people in our world don't touch it at all.
Yeah. Wow. And it's I'm sure it's such a case by case basis. There's no like definite age where all of a sudden you're going through this transition. And I think that's what's beautiful about your program is that you help people through that transition no matter what time it is they arrive there. And I want to talk about your book, Conscious Living, Conscious Aging, Claiming the Gifts of Elderhood, because I'm sure this helps individuals who may be approaching elderhood. And in the book, you highlight the importance of spending time in nature. Let's talk to our listeners about why this is so essential.
Well, one of the the key attributes of a conscious elder is somebody who has reached a point through their life experience and through some of the inner work that they have done. They've reached the point of coming to know what is truly their own unique voice, their own unique guidance, which will be the source of the guidance that will help them move into their future with purpose and with passion and with fulfillment, as opposed to all the many, many other voices that we've all internalized over our whole lives. That's just how life is. We all carry many, many voices of who we should be, how we should be, what should be important to us.
Yeah.
If it is indeed important for our growth into elderhood to come to know what our own unique and authentic voice is, the natural world plays a big role in that. Because I think we all know when we're in nature, we're away from all these voices of our society and the news and everybody telling us what we should believe, who we should be.
Yeah.
And we get more in touch. Nature has a way of helping us to get in touch with what is most true and natural in us. Nature has a way, if we approach it in a quiet way and not in a goal-driven way, that every time we go out there, we're doing it to climb this peak or to accomplish this feat. But if we spend time in nature just open, we get in touch with those quieter voices of our own inner knowing that are so important to our growth that we cannot get in touch with when we're strictly surrounded by human-made creations.
Yeah. We can get so lost in the concrete jungles of the world to just sit out in the grass and a meditation or to go on a walk through the trees. It really is magical and grounding.
It definitely is. And that's the reason that throughout history, in most societies we know of around the world, at certain key turning points in life, the community sent the person out into nature. A walkabout in Australia, on top of the mountain here in this country, to spend time alone, quiet, oftentimes fasting, where they shut off all the other inner voices so they can really hear what's calling them as they're moving forward into their next chapter.
That inner work, sitting alone in nature with your thoughts.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
So I want to talk about the concept of legacy, which I believe is important to think of at any stage. Building a legacy, leaving a legacy. I know it's especially important to keep top of mind in elderhood. What do I want to leave of myself in this world that once I'm no longer here? So how do you suggest we best define and honor our legacies while we still have time to live fully?
Well, I think a lot of us carry, to the extent that we think about legacy, a lot of us carry the idea that our legacy is basically the result, for better or worse, of whatever we've accomplished or given or been in our career. And that's true. You know, and hopefully our legacy, the positives outweigh the negatives. But the mark we make on the world, part of that is made during our career. But if we live in a world where many of us are going to live 25 or 30 more years after our career is over, we have an opportunity to create a whole new, wonderful chapter of our legacy. It might draw on some of the skills and passions we had during our career. It might draw on other passions that we perhaps carried our whole life and never had the opportunity to pursue, but now we have a chance. It might draw on the work we do to find this sense of purpose. And then we leave that gift to the world.
Yeah.
And God knows we live in a world that is in crisis.
Yeah.
And it needs all of our gifts, not just the gifts of people who are under 65.
Yeah.
It needs all of our gifts, all of our wisdom, and the legacy of our elderhood can perhaps be even the most important gift that we leave to the generations that are going to follow. If we see it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so big on like, how can I use what I've been through to help others? How can I use my gifts or my skills or the challenges that I've overcome to serve?
Yes.
And elderhood, I'm sure, is a beautiful time to do that. So, Ron, as we begin to wrap up, is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with today? Perhaps I'm curious what the greatest lesson you've learned as someone who has dedicated their life to living consciously, the a piece of advice you'd like to leave our audience with today.
What comes to mind is, I guess I'd like to share what I think is the most powerful quotation that I know, that I think in many ways forms the essence of a whole lot of the conscious eldering work that I do. And this quotation is from the great Howard Thurman, who was a philosopher, a theologian, a civil rights activist who played a key role in Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. And his quote, I think, sums up a whole lot of what it can mean to be a conscious elder. And his quote is, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive."
Wow.
And I believe that our elderhood is an opportunity to come alive in a whole different way than we've known before. But it takes commitment. It takes some work. It takes stepping out of our comfort zones, which most people are adverse to doing. But the gifts, they're losses. I don't mean to gloss over the fact that there are lots of losses and diminishments in elderhood, physical abilities, other losses. But there are incredible things to gain at the same time.
Yes.
And by coming alive, even as we suffer some losses, we're going to reap the benefits of everything we can gain as true conscious elders.
To keep living.
Yeah.
To keep living and to keep your spirit alive.
That's right.
Yeah. Ron, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can our listeners find you?
Well, we've got a website that has a lot of information that many people say they find very valuable. Center for Conscious Eldering.com. I know that's a mouthful. Center for Conscious Eldering.com.
Wonderful.
There are a lot of places where you can find, you can learn about my book, and there are places where you can find how you could sign up to receive our quarterly journal, which includes a lot of meaningful articles and inspirational poetry and other things that can help support people on our journey of conscious eldering.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming on and for the incredible work that you are doing in our world today.
Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.